To order Tuesday, August 21st meeting of the Parks and Rec Commission. We have a quorum established. Note that Commissioners Cardick, Stanley, and De Palma are absent tonight. So, established. We're going to approve our minutes from our work session on June 12th, 2018. Please note that we were provided the minutes in advance of the meetings. Commissioners, are there any corrections or adjustments we'd like to make to those minutes? No? Okay, the minutes stand approved. Next order of business, we have the lacrosse club here to do a presentation for us. I know there is a Katie. That's me.
Commissioners, briefly, this is a continuation of some of our previous meetings where we've had other youth sports organizations in to speak with this commission and kind of discuss what their association's about, and generally give people an idea about the breadth of youth activities, youth athletics here in Hastings. So this is a continuation, and we're happy to have Hastings Lacrosse here tonight.
All right, thank you for having us. My presentation is brief, so I would hope there are some questions for me because I wasn't 100% sure what information you'd like. The first slide here is a picture of the majority of our lacrosse players from the 2018 season. The picture includes players as young as 7 all the way up to some 16-year-old athletes. And we have, I think we had just over 100 athletes registered this year. And we have both male and female athletes all playing in the boys arena for the sport. This year we had our 12U took the state championship for their division. And our prep team also took first place for their division. So we've had a good history of having some winning teams coming out of our program. And then the next slide that I have is the field space that lacrosse requires. It's not a super easy sport to find field space for because it does require a large field. It is able to be played on a soccer field, but the size is actually just a tad bigger than a soccer field. So what we use as far as field time, between all age levels, we have 3 to 4 games a week. And so we're looking for space to host those games so we can host home games. And then each of the teams practice 3 to 4 nights a week. So we also are looking for practice space for approximately 12-hour-long sessions. And then in addition to the boys teams that we have, we are also looking at adding 2 more girls teams, possibly a 14U level and a 12U level, which would require just a little bit more space. And the reason that we're coming to the Parks Department looking for space is that we're growing year over year and we're seeing our numbers increase, which causes a lack of field availability. We currently have 1 field at the high school that we're able to use regularly, but as you know, if you can imagine trying to get 6 or 8 teams scheduled on 1 field, it's a little bit difficult for scheduling purposes. So that's all I really have. So I said it would be brief. So what questions would you have for us?
Do you have like an idea of where you would like to use a field? Or is there certain areas that would work better for your needs?
For the needs of the field sizes and proximity of fields together, we would ideally like space at Betts Park if possible. Because we have refs that we have to pay to come to our fields, We would like to have 2 full fields in one location so that those refs can be shared between games. Ideally, we would like to have 4 spaces where we could put full-size fields on, but obviously green space is limited and there's other people that we need to share those fields with, so. And then we could also, if soccer, soccer has a lot of fields in the city, we could paint our lines on the soccer fields. If they could become a dual-use field, we can do that as well.
What a lot of other places have done that we've played on is they just use a different color. So we use yellow, they use white, or however that works. That way the refs still know what those lines are. I think the biggest thing that we ran into this year was we had one field at the high school. And so we have one field and we have 4 teams that have practices and games, so that doesn't work out very well. We were able to use Featherstone this year for one practice field. Didn't work well for games because there's some big divots and stuff in there, but for a practice field, since they only use part of the space, it worked out fine. Once school ended, construction happened at the high school, which they did not let us know about. So the marching band, which normally practices in their parking lot, moved to our lacrosse field. And because they're a school function, we were then kicked off of that field. So that doesn't work very well when you already have games scheduled. So that's why we're, with growing numbers and growing teams, we're hoping to kind of establish one spot that's more permanent, just for consistency, and it will make it easier to keep things painted and keep things maintained. If we know, this year we ended up measuring and painting 3 different field spaces because we kept having to move around. So we had to each week we had to email out to the opposing team as well as the refs and our own team where our game was going to be each week, depending upon what the field needs were. So that was kind of frustrating, and that's not always ideal. It makes the organization kind of look chaotic when you can't provide a consistent space for your teams. It worked out and we made it work, but we had put a lot of parent volunteer hours in.
We had a lot of hours spent painting fields.
To measure and paint those fields, which,
Measuring and painting professionals now.
Yes, we are.
It's much easier, the 3rd time around.
I can
measure and paint and
paint a
measure.
straight line
Yeah,
now.
those lines on the last field got really straight. But, so we would just, I think our biggest thing is especially as we're growing and we're trying to really establish lacrosse as a, good sport for our youth to play here in Hastings as we're growing, is just to have a great space to play and a consistent space to play.
Kind of touched on it a little bit. Can you tell us a little bit more about the history of Hastings lacrosse? Like how long has it been around
We'll
and how
do
has it
our
evolved?
best.
Sure.
I believe they started in 2008 with one team.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So I think this is its 10th season, or right around there.
Yeah, because the oldest kids that started have
They
graduated.
graduated this year. So the first kids who went into like a Little Scoopers or U8 program graduated this year from high school. So a lot of those kids are actually helping coach our younger kids. Some of them graduated
Last year.
because we had Jake Foster and some of the other ones come back as well. So we started out with one team. This year was the first year that we were able to add a U8 team with enough. We had sort of a practice thing last year where kids were able to come in, but this year we actually had enough interest to field 13 or 14 kids at a U8 level for spring, that's great for growing us into the next sport. This year there's quite a few girls hockey players that would like to play lacrosse. They're very similar games. And because we don't have the space and we don't have just the resources to expand, we had 4 girls that ended up playing for Rosemount lacrosse this year, which is good. Rosemount has invited our girls to play. We have a couple girls that do play in our boys program. Once they get to 7th grade, however, or once they pass that U14 level, they can't continue to play high school and not allow them. So our high school girls team starts as a freshman, sometimes an 8th grader. So because we do not have space and we don't have the resources, unfortunately our high school girls team starts out much later than any of the surrounding areas. But the boys, I know my son has played since he was probably 7 or 8.
I think 8, because when our kids started, it was a 9U
Like
program.
9U.
Yep.
So they've been playing for quite a few years. This year, we had 3 teams take second place at our very first tournament, so that was a lot of fun.
Another question, seasons. You mentioned spring season. What are the seasons of lacrosse?
So our spring season is a box league, which will play in the hockey arena where they put turf. They start in a box league at the younger levels because it's a smaller environment, more contained for them to be in, so they can learn the skills of the game, the catching, the passing, scooping the ball off the ground. So the 8U and 10U levels will use that for a spring season. But the older levels, the spring season and summer season is all one generic season. So once the weather is nice enough to get out to play and the fields are, dry enough that you're not going to destroy them, then we like to try to get the boys out in the grass in the environment they're actually going to be playing their games in. So the older levels technically only have a summer season, but we started a little bit earlier in the year.
Okay. And does that run through?
The last week of July. So
Last week of
games
July.
run from Memorial Weekend through the tournament is always the last weekend in July.
So similar to softball season.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep, very similar.
There's no like fall leagues.
There is a fall league, but we don't have enough of a presence to join the fall leagues because a lot of our lacrosse players are football and hockey players. So the seasons overlap too much that typically they usually go back. So we don't have enough players for a fall.
Some of our players that do want to play fall will go like to Rosemount or some of the surrounding communities. Because lacrosse is a newer sport in Minnesota, a lot of associations will take kids from other areas. So like we had 1 or 2 kids from Red Wing. Red Wing had to close down their program for a year and just put it on hold because they just didn't have the resources, the parent resources to run the program anymore. So a lot of communities are willing to help out and kind of combine teams or pick up kids if it's necessary.
Sure. So I take it, and interrupt me if I'm asking too many questions. No school affiliation. It's purely a club of its own.
Youth lacrosse club
That was
has
my next
no
question.
school affiliation. This year, the high school team was fully absorbed by the high school. This is the first, I think this is the first year. Last year was sort of a transitional year where they were sort of still a youth lacrosse team and sort of a high school team. This year, they've taken all of the high school, the JV and the varsity players.
Okay.
So it's solely just a club sport.
And that the school is totally a school season.
The school has their own
School
fields, does their own
sports,
season.
School
Yep.
sports, all that stuff.
Yep.
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 Okay.
And in the high school level, it is considered a spring sport.
So
Okay.
their season runs pretty similar to ours.
Mhm.
They started indoor practices the very end of March at the arena. They move outside right after that.
Sure.
And then they run right through, I think, maybe the week after school's out, whenever their playoff season.
Okay.
Are you folks self-funded? Is that how you,
We are self-funded. We, considering other programs in the area, we charge a minimal fee, which basically covers our association fees, and there's a little bit of a budget in the fee for paint, but it's very minimal cost.
nonprofit?
We are a nonprofit.
Okay.
Yep. I believe we're 501c3c.
Yep.
Yep.
So your players transition into the high school team typically?
Yep, so our program is a feeder program mostly for the high school. Most of the kids come out because, they see other kids
Sure.
running around and swinging sticks, and it's,
Yeah.
a fun thing for them to do, so.
doesn't wanna
And then
do
they
that?
get hooked. It's a very addicting sport for kids to play, and it's fun to watch, and it's fun for them to play, so.
It's growing quite a bit in the metro right now, right?
It is. The whole Midwest lacrosse is growing in general. There's a really big lacrosse community. Everybody is very willing to help each other out just to see that program grow. If you go out east, there's a huge lacrosse following, and they're trying to, pull that further and further west as much as they can.
And then the one field you guys use right now, that's the one that high school uses too, that lacrosse field?
The one field that we had is the field, I'm not sure if how familiar you are with the campus at the high school, but it's the field directly behind the tech wing, there's
Okay.
a big blue wall. That's our wall ball wall. It's the practice so they can throw out a ball or a ball at the wall and it just rebounds so they can catch it. That's the field that we've historically used. And we just have so many.
The high school has how many, their own fields?
The high school has one of their own.
One of their own field, okay.
And what we ran into this year was, because they want to maintain their turf
Yeah,
and don't want it damaged, don't want overuse and stuff like that, the high school athletics department is very strict about who can use what fields for what length of time.
sure.
So once their season was done, Brady, who was the high school coach, allowed our youth team, because we were left without a place to play at all once the marching band took over. He let us finish our last, 1 week, 6 games? something like
Yeah,
that.
Mr. Hansen actually told us
Yeah.
that because of the situation that we were in, that, we could finish out the last 3 weeks of our season on that high school field, but
Okay.
because of the, the damage that it can cause at times, if you're not careful with, playing in the rain and all of that kind of stuff.
Sure.
Which
Okay.
this year, it worked out well because we were able to get Featherstone. There were some rain dates. That decision is made early enough by the Parks Department that we were able to notify, even if we couldn't hold practice or games. And that's something that we tried to tell the high school we would kind of honor, is when the city closes their fields, which you guys have done traditionally for rains or for wet fields or whatever, is we would honor that as well for school fields to try and minimize damage. In the past, we haven't seen a lot of turf damage from lacrosse. Sometimes there might be around the net area. But we have some money hopefully set aside to kind of help to minimize the damage or fix repairs if they were
If necessary.
Refresh my memory, what's the actual size per field? What do you really need?
I think it's
What we actually need is, it's a,
Really small print.
It's so small, I can't read it, so.
okay, sorry.
60 by 110, does that sound right?
It's,
think that's
it's 110
60
yards by
yards.
60 yards.
Okay,
That sounds exhausting.
So, and we can reduce it down. It's a little bit bigger than a soccer field, but,
Yep.
because a lot of the associations know, or the associations that we play with know the limit on field spaces, they allow us to reduce the size so that we can fit in a standard soccer field.
Do a lot of other teams play on soccer fields too in their communities?
They
Kind
do.
of
Yep.
y'all have shortages too?
Yep.
Yep.
Sometimes you go and there
Okay.
are lines all over the place. They're all just painted in different colors. So
Oh.
as long as the refs know
Which
what
color to
colors,
follow.
You figure it out.
Do you know what that size of field is, that soccer field you're talking about? Because there's a variety of different
At bats?
sizes of soccer
Full
fields.
adult size soccer.
And that's the one you'd like to use at bats?
Isn't that a 60 by 120?
It might be.
Is it?
I think so. Soccer, a full-on adult soccer field is wider and longer than a standard football field.
Okay, and a lacrosse field is wider and longer than a
Yeah.
standard
Yeah.
football field.
Okay, and just a random question. It helps me think about stuff.
Yep.
And I know we've had discussions with soccer as well too, because we know them. We've shared painting resources and stuff back and forth, Lakeview Stars and stuff this year. And so they're kind of aware of what bind we're in this year as far as finding field space available. So we've talked about that with them as well as, if we need to share space, because there's a lot of stuff that doesn't get used every single day,
Mhm.
even though they have adult fields. So.
So you guys' season is pretty well done for the year. You're looking for
Yep,
next
this
spring?
Yes, we're
year.
looking
Yep,
for
so we're
next
just
year.
looking
Next
for
year?
that.
Okay.
Pre-planning for next year, we
Yep.
have some idea of where we can be. And then, because budget-wise, that affects us, how many fields do we need to measure, how many fields do we need to paint, and how many fields do we need to maintain and paint for? At the school, we have to make sure that we paint all of those fields. We're required to paint them whenever it's necessary. So we make sure that we budget that stuff. So going forward for next season, depending upon what space that we need, that will make a difference too, if we need to continue to budget for those needs as well.
Okay. Do you guys have any other questions?
nope.
Okay. I wanted to launch in quick, and so commission knows, and so you guys know, and maybe you already are aware, in the spring, one of our staff members, Phil Vargas, hosts a field users meeting. So that's where we invite all the field users to the table, and we go through that process of space here, space here, space here, this night, that night, you know, this time of day, that time of day, all that sort of stuff. And as you guys are aware, athletic green space here in Hastings is hard to come by due to the fact that there's a large number of kids playing sports, which is fantastic. We want to encourage that as best as we can. So I envision this next year's field users meeting to be robust.
Thank you.
Unfortunately, we didn't find out about that meeting until after it had happened.
Okay.
I think that's when I was talking to Phil, and he's like, well, there was this meeting, and
Sure.
we've had a big transition of people who have been on our board this year,
Yep.
who haven't, some of that communication wasn't made.
Yep.
So we did the best we could, and Phil was able to help us out with getting some space and
Sure.
helping with painting and that
Sure.
kind of stuff. and
Yep.
resources, so.
Yeah, and we want to, as a department, we want to do everything that we can to support all of this. And we expect all the players that come to the table for that meeting to have an understanding of the bind that everybody is in. So being as
Yeah.
creative as we can.
Great.
We were trying to be very creative
Yeah,
this summer.
understood.
Sounds
We
like
were
you guys
looking-
did a
we
good
were
job
looking at
handling it.
Google Maps and trying to
Sure.
figure out where we might be able to fit
Oh.
a field and what we could ask for.
Did
And
you guys ever wind up at Pleasant or Rosemary Ponding Basin?
we almost went to Rosemary, but at the point of going to Rosemary,
That's when
the high school,
Okay.
Trent Hansen was out of the country for a while, so we couldn't get his permission to use the high school field. So finally, when he came back from his vacation, then we got the blessing to go ahead and use that one field for the rest of the season.
And
Our U10 kids did play at Wallen in the hockey area that's
Oh,
boarded out
sure.
there, which for those kids worked out fine for practice. They didn't post any of their games there, but it also minimized the space they could contain or throw the balls. So in a way, for that age kid, that worked out okay as well. Until it rained and it was filled with frogs, and then they had
Yeah.
fun trying to.
Distractions.
Those are good creative solutions. Those rinks typically sit vacant during the
So, I mean, that
summertime.
worked out well for that age group of kids.
Perhaps there's some sort of partnership we can launch into if that's a continued, if you want to continue with that. Maybe then we find a way to see if we can get some actual grass to grow in there
Yeah, 'cause I
and
know
grade
that
stuff
they're
off
not
and stuff.
maintained space, but we kind of took whatever we could get.
Yep. We'll mow them to knock the weeds down, but that's about it.
Yep.
But maybe there's something to do with that
Sure.
in the future. And yeah, I mentioned Rosemary or Pleasant strictly for like a practice field, not necessarily a game field. So maybe that somehow lessens, it puts the priority of games over the priority of practice on the size of field that you need. I remember growing up playing soccer, we would play anywhere that we could. Right?
Right.
Whether it was somebody's backyard or whatever it was,
Oh, we
just to
even
get practice in.
We're going through our list of people to try to figure out who has, a house in the country that we could go practice
Sure.
at, so.
For some of our churches around town that have a lot of green space,
Mhm.
that's where we are in Google Maps. Like, do you think they have enough space? We can at least go practice without breaking windows but then we ended up with a hockey league.
Did you guys ever wind up using any of the space at Kennedy?
We did not use any of the space at Kennedy.
Okay,
No.
I was curious.
We
if-
were going to use the space at McCullough, because soccer turned that back over to the schools, but then they said no. I think they were doing some parking lot.
Yep, they were.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, they were. Yeah, Kennedy's got a, what used to be a football field
Right.
back there. It was the old middle school site, I believe.
Yep.
So they've got it.
Part of the issue with the field space at Kennedy, it is similar to Featherstone, where it's been slightly ignored for a
Sure,
long time,
sure.
and so the field is very rough. So
Yep.
as you have people, running, looking behind them, you don't want to hit one of those holes and have broken ankles. So
Understood.
we did a long time ago have the Kennedy's
Okay.
area as our practice space, and that's when the high school let us use the wall ball field, is what we call it.
Sure.
So.
Okay. Yeah, so that meeting it'll be well attended, yeah, it'll be well attended, I'm sure.
Do you happen to have a date for it, or has
I
it not
don't,
been
I'd have to
set
ask
yet?
Phil.
Okay.
So if you're in touch with Phil, just stay in touch with
Stay in
him.
touch with Phil.
Yep. Yeah, Well, I think
Send
once
them
you're
a
on,
couple reminders too.
once you're on the list, you never get off the list, which may have been part of that transition issue is we
Yeah.
didn't get that notification either, so. Oh, good.
So, any other questions?
I don't have any more. I really appreciate you guys coming in tonight.
Yeah,
It's
thanks
great
for
to learn.
Yes.
Listening to us and,
Well, you guys did a really good job making it work for the kids.
well, it's
It sounds like
important
a
for
lot of
us.
work,
I
so
have
kudos to you.
I have a 7-year-old coming up into the program, and I have a
Yeah.
14-year-old that's going into the high school program, not next year, but the year after. So it's like, from a parent perspective, I really want to make it work so that we can see the program grow and we can still see those kids still be successful. So,
I think we tried to make it as seamless as possible for our parents, just
yeah, most of the parents wouldn't have a clue what we went through to get field space.
Sure.
So
Which is, yes,
the
typically the
less work
case.
there is, the more likely we'll have more volunteers too. So
Good.
it's kind of a multi-purpose thing to get more
Very
space.
good.
So.
Well, yes, once again,
right.
appreciate it very much. I think it's important for our commission here to learn more about what's going on in the community. So, thank you for doing what you
Yeah.
do.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Are you gonna do anything with this?
Nope, you're good.
Is John coming in?
Nope,
Okay.
it's me.
Oh, you're in charge of new business?
I'm in charge of the park dedication for Wallen 18th edition. You guys all have the memo in the packet.
I do.
So basically, this is commission is requested to review and decide on the method of park dedication. The method that's being proposed is cash in lieu, and understand that this is a development that was planned long ago, and this is just a portion of it that's being replatted. So they're adding additional lots, which means that there's additional park dedication due. So they've paid already. This is an addition because there are more lots.
Gotcha.
And you can see on John's map kind of where that is off General Sieben Drive. And just as a physical land dedication note, I don't know that there's adequate land within that site to withhold some of that. And it is very near Wallen Park.
Do we know or need to know what they plan to do with the money? Put it towards probably Wallen Park?
The park dedication funds will be put into Ward 4, which is where this development is. So that will add to that balance. And then park dedication monies are, they can be spent on land acquisition. They can be spent for the purpose of parks. They can be spent to develop or redevelop a neighborhood park or a community park. So there are pretty strict restrictions on park dedication funds. But yeah, adding new pieces of equipment or new courts or that sort of stuff can be done with that park dedication money. If you guys have any additional questions for me,
It makes sense.
Sure.
otherwise we'd be looking for a motion.
Madam Chair, I make a motion that we take the cash in lieu of and the dollar amount noted.
Is there a second?
Second motion?
All right. All in favor, say aye.
Yes. Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion passes.
Very good.
3 people.
Straight through it.
The second order on new business is because of me, so I'll take it. September, we usually meet the second Tuesday of every month. That happens to coincide with my elk hunting trip in Colorado, so
Unacceptable.
you're welcome to have the meeting without me. I will think of you from atop a mountain, but otherwise, we should look to find another date for that. And I am open to any and all suggestions. I will be out the 7th of September, returning the 17th of September.
The 18th is already tied up. The 19th will be tied up for me.
I feel that we usually are all available on Tuesdays because we're already booked for our commission.
Yep.
Yeah. Pushing it back 1 week, it does conflict with the HPC meeting, which again is going on tonight as well. We just use different spaces.
Oh,
So we can have 2 meetings in the same evening, that's just fine. We'll just use different spaces.
I'm okay with the 18th.
Joe?
You want to look for the 18th?
The 4th isn't gonna work probably well. I know a lot of people are going back to school and they're on vacation for Labor Day,
Yeah,
so that might be a little bit more difficult.
that'll be tight.
18th,
I didn't check the calendar, so.
I'm 50/50 on it right now, probably. But if it works for everybody else, please go ahead. I want to. What were the other dates we could possibly use?
Any, we don't want to coincide with the council meeting, so I would say not the 17th, but 18 through 21 is fine, or 24 through 28.
25th would be better for me. How does that work for you guys?
I'd take that.
Problem with that is you're bumping up to the other one, right?
Yeah.
Then so we gotta.
It's 2 weeks before the other one.
How about let's go with the 18th unless we find other commissioners can't make that, so we could,
Can we send out something and see if like there's a whole bunch of us that can't make it, then we could push for the 25th, or?
We'll look at 9/18.
okay, thank you.
Paige, would you like to share some department updates with us?
That's for you, you were there.
Oh, that's her job.
Some Parks and Rec department updates. We recently celebrated the ribbon cutting at Lions Park, which a lot of our commissioners, in conjunction with the Public Safety Advisory Commission, put on for the community of Hastings. For the new playground at Lions Park, we had over 400 people attend, so it was a great event with lots of activities and free food and events and community organizations and partners that attended. And we are coming into our last month of programming at Levy Park in September. So if you haven't attended a movie or music or art or fitness or story time or a variety of programs down at Levy, I encourage you to go down there and enjoy a program along the riverfront, especially in the fall, since the weather cools off and the bugs go away. So it's one of my favorite months to program.
Very good. I'd say outside of that, it's getting to be time for ice at the arena. That'll be coming right around the corner here.
Wow.
And this Sunday, the 26th, is the last day for the Hastings Family Aquatic Center to be open. So last day to use your punch cards, your season pass, what have you. Get out and use those. We do not issue refunds if you don't use them. So use them quick.
Use 'em.
That's right. The week after that, our manager will be hosting a lifeguard training course. So that's where people that are interested in becoming lifeguards can pay and go through this course to learn how to be a lifeguard, learn those skills. And Teresa runs a fantastic class. Not only does she do that, but she trains all of her staff there as well. She's certified in a variety of different things, and does a very, very good job with that. So that's about it.
Anybody else have anything else we want to discuss?
Yeah, I'd like to bring up a point. Earlier this evening, I was at the 316 meeting at Crossroads Church. Part of the aspect of that program is it's an overlay and relay of the highway from Highway 61, all of 316 to where it comes back to Highway 61 in the south part of the county. But in conjunction with that, there is money in that program for a trail addition that would help fit into our trail system here within the city. And tonight, the state laid out 4 different options that they would like the community to review and look at. And I think it behooves this commission to ask the state if they would come in and at least present the portion about the trail, adapt changes. There are like 4 different options for where the trail would be supplemented into the highway program. And I think it would be a good idea that this commission got a look at that and help facilitate the impact, what the city would like, and what would eventually turn out for our trail system.
Yeah, I can look to get in touch with MnDOT and ask them what their timing looks like to match up with our meeting schedule. I don't know how quickly they can turn that around, but yeah, we'll get
I
in
would
touch
like
with
to hear
them.
from
and-
I think that'd be a good learning visit.
Yeah, we can certainly invite them to the table.
Thank you, Dave.
Sure thing.
Anything else?
Motion to adjourn?
Second it?
Our meeting is adjourned.